Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Business Spotlight. Again, my name is Megan with Action Coach, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Matthew, who is with Selhorst Woodworking. And so, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just very interested in, how you even got here to this point with creating this business. And so, I would love for you to really just speak into that and tell us about your journey.
Sure. I kind of lucked into this role in this position. Um, you know, if you would told 16-year-old Matthew that he owns a carpentry business, I'd be like, wait, what? You're not a Major League Baseball player? What happened? Um, but I was in sales out of college. I did medical device sales for 7 years, and I got into a role at work that I just didn't love. And it was right around the same time that I bought a house. And for whatever reason in my mind, I was always wanted to play with power tools, even though I didn't know anything about them. And I thought, oh, well, I'm going to do some things in my house. And so I did an accent wall and I had fun and I enjoyed it. And then a couple of friends asked me to do an accent wall. And then my brother and I would fly back and forth between here and San Diego, where he lives, and we would do accent walls. We built our first barn door in his garage. And um, I just had more and more people start asking me to do it. And I was disliking my corporate job more and more as well. So I thought, well, I'll just start an Instagram page and see if anybody like pays me to do this on the side. If I can make a little money on the side as a passion project while I'm still doing med device, that's fine. Um, and then everyone decided to pay me to do work. So much so that I was skipping out on work. I was missing cases. I was just really not doing the job. I was probably about to get fired when I finally just decided, okay, it's time. I'm just gonna give it a go and see what happens. Um, I was newly engaged, so I'm sure that was terrifying to my now wife, but she was really supportive, and I just started in my garage. So I think from the time I quit my job was like December 2018. Starting in January, I've never not had work. So I've been really fortunate. Instagram worked a lot, did really well, and then word of mouth. And then, Vegas is a small, big city. Everybody talks, and that's great. So I just kept rolling, and then I was in my garage for about a year, and then I took the leap and got a space, um, got my first shop, and that was terrifying because pretty much a month after was COVID, and I freaked out thinking, oh, of course this is how it goes. You left your nice cushy high paying job to start this woodworking business, and now no one's going to have money and everyone's going to be sick. Maybe you should have stayed in med device. But it didn't work out that way. Everybody sat at home and watched HGTV and then called me. And so, COVID really helped boost my business. It was good for me, and obviously it was unfortunate for a lot of people, but it's weird how things work that way. And then, we just kept growing. We got a second shop, and then we got a van, and then we got a trailer, and then we got more employees and more employees. And now we're at the point where, I'm trying to figure out if I need to hire a designer or start a paint service or work on a finish shop, or there's lots of different avenues to go with it. And it's really kind of pretty exciting time right now.
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, it is interesting too because, working with so many business owners and at these different positions and these pivotal points, I do see there sometimes, people want to start a business and they have this idea and it's okay, but how do I make it profitable? And so a lot of times what I say is, is there a need? And so I think the way you did it is perfect in that way of you're kind of like, I'm just going to put this out there and see if anybody wants to pay me. And so, in my opinion, that's one of the best ways to go about it and to do it more successfully than others might, because you are really filtering that out in that interim period. And so, you opening your shop right before COVID hitting, what were some of the obstacles and challenges that you were experiencing that time, and how did you manage to overcome them?
So at that time, my biggest challenge was getting enough, just getting the jobs done because there were so many people. And, that was 3 years ago, and I'm by no means an expert right now. I'm still learning every day. But at that point, I didn't know like who were good people to hire, what sort of people I needed, what um, what direction to go in. I mean, I don't have a big business background. I went to school for exercise physiology and kinesiology. Um, so I didn't go to business school. Everything I've done is just me thinking, okay, well, I think this makes sense. This seems like the most common sense thing to me.
Mm.
And, they weren't always right. And I've changed my pricing structure 100 times, and I've gone through more employees than I care to admit because they weren't the right hire, or I didn't set expectations correctly, or whatever may be. Um, but on for all those failures, I've had so many uh, good things that I've been fortunate. I found a business partner who knows a lot more about construction and carpentry and things like that than I do. So we balance each other really well because my sales background really helps to drive the business and get more customers and kind of steer the ship, while his helps us to do good work, because at the end of the day, you have to do good work, or else your name's going to get out there and it's going to be like, oh well, these guys are schmucks and they don't really know what they're doing. But luckily we do, and we have a lot of very happy customers and more 5-star reviews than anybody else on Google, and so those kind of things really help.
Yeah, nice. I love it. And yeah, that is true because, I think as a business owner, especially coming into it and it's creating our first business, it is those pain points that we navigate and figuring out, okay, what works, what doesn't. Even if you have owned another business before, it's still, if this is something new that you haven't done, there's still those things to navigate, right? I think it's kind of similar to parenting in that way of like, you can have another kid and you've been a parent before, but yet that kid's totally different.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate actually. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and we're just trying to figure out what we're doing right now, and it's a lot of similar parallels. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. So even kind of talking into that a little bit, how would you say you go about kind of managing that like business and work life and your personal and your family life? What does that look like for you?
So I grew up with a family of small business. My dad owned a catering business for 35, like almost 40 years now. Um, so I kind of knew what to expect owning a small business. I knew the hard work. He was always at every game I ever played, but there was a lot of times where he had to go back to work afterwards. So that was kind of me knowing that ahead of time and going into it knowing that I wanted to be around when my daughter is more conscientious of me being around. So, I try to be home by, dinner and bath time and do all that stuff. But then, 4 nights a week after I've had dinner with my wife and put my daughter to bed, it's back on the computer and doing quotes. And so there's regular, all my customers will probably tell you they've heard from me at midnight before and see emails at 2 a.m. And so my kind of thought on the whole thing, or outlook, is work hard now so I don't have to as much later. So I'm trying to do all the hard work and set all the pieces in so that, when my daughter is 15 or 16, her bratty friends are like, why is your dad always here? Because I worked hard.
You're like, because I can.
Yeah, because I can get out.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and similarly, I grew up with an entrepreneurial, dad, and So it was almost like that was the only way for me, because that's the only thing that made sense of like, yeah, be your own boss, create your own things, and also figuring out how you wanted to do it. And
Yeah.
that's only one way to do it, but there is a better way, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So
My dad's my hero, and I got all my work ethic from him clearly because he, just like I said, seeing him for so many years and just be so giving towards us. However, I want to do it, better so that I don't have to as much when I'm in my 60s. I'm collecting mailbox money kind of thing.
I love that. So what would you say is your big dream or goal with what you're creating right now?
Um, I had a boss back in the device that called them BHAGs. They were big, hairy, audacious goals. So we had like our short-term goals, long-term goals, achievable goals, stretches, and then our BHAG, which was like the most unthinkable thing. I like to look at other companies and think, okay, how, that kind of size or this kind of size. Short term, there's a couple cabinetry companies that I've reached out to and have been like pretty good mentors to me, and those are kind of short term. But I think long term, um, I would love to be like a California Closets, something that size. That's my big, hairy, audacious goal. That might be for my daughter to get to. I don't know if I have enough time to get to that, but in a perfect world, yeah, I'd have Selhorst Woodworks in other cities and excuse me, in in cities all over the country.
Nice. Well, I think that's exciting and absolutely doable. So,
I
yeah,
hope so. We'll see.
absolutely. Well, so, you had mentioned like, it's like younger you would have never thought that this would be something that was possible for you. So, with that in mind, what would your biggest piece of advice be for that younger version of you now?
So I think the what I love about this is that it checks all my boxes that 16-year-old me knew but didn't know. I guess I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player from the time I was 4. That's all I thought about. It was a long-term goal. It was difficult. It was prestigious. It made a lot of money. It was all these things that I loved, and I got to play in college and then got hurt, so that was never really going to be happen. And so for a long time, I struggled with, oh, I'm never going to love anything as much as I loved baseball. Nothing's ever going to give me fulfillment like baseball did. However, I figured out what it was about baseball that I loved so much, and I tried to find something that would match all those things. For a long time, it was I did triathlons for a little while because that I was young and it was like that athletic itch, and I was just very competitive and I just wanted to beat people. Then it became med device because it was kind of like a prestigious thing to do for guys out of college, and it was made good money, and you know I'm embarrassed to say this, but girls liked that job, and so for a long time it was that. But then I kept trying to figure out, okay, what is it about these things that I'm drawn to? What is it about baseball that I love so much? And I figured out that it was, it has to be difficult to achieve. If it's easy to do, it's not all that exciting to me. I don't understand the generations, have it now kind of mentality. It doesn't make sense to me. I want something that is hard to get and you have to earn. Um, Also money. I'm very money driven, so I never wanted to have a job that had a cap. Um, and then it is somewhat prestigious. It's I'm proud to say that I'm a business owner. It's not the most glamorous thing, but I'm still proud. So I think 16-year-old me, I'd say, you're gonna figure it out. It's not necessarily baseball, but it is, and it's better in a lot of ways.
I love that. And I like those key points too, because So before I did business coaching, I was in the fitness and wellness industry. And so with that, it really was speaking into this, when I was working with athletes, depending, whether it was sports specific, whether it was dancers, all of that. And it was just that idea that these are the type of people that know what hard work is, and they are looking for that payoff. And so it's like there's this long road of work that we do for this one moment of potential payoff. And it's not even given. It is
Yeah,
earned. And so I do see there's so many skills that are acquired in athletes over that time that do transfer over to business. And I've seen that those have been some of the best business owners, or it's become so easy for them because they understand that there is a jet way and that there isn't something instant.
I think it's also that they're self-starters. No one's going to give it to you. There's no, and no one's going to come in and save you, and no one's going to. So when your business feels like it's in the shitter and it's never going to work, and you know you're going to have to sell your house and you're going to go bankrupt and you're going to have to go back to med device. When you have those thoughts, it's no one's going to come save you. There's no plan B. It's figure it out, move forward. And think, I think athletes are some of the only people that kind of have that mentality. Maybe military would probably have similar guys that have, and women that have that kind of mentality.
Yeah, yeah, and actually to that point, because I do interact and work with a lot of veterans, and that is the thing too, is they are very service driven, but also it's still that work ethic is there, and so what would be just one last thing that you would add as like a piece of advice for anybody that's thinking of starting a business or going into the earlier stages of entrepreneurialism? What would be the one thing that you would speak into them?
So I've had a few friends reach out to me and ask me like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about starting this. Like, what's it like? And I'm like, well, why? And they said, well, I want to spend more time with my family and I want to make more money. And I go, well, that's nice, but you're going to put in way more work. Owning your own business ownership is the only job you do 100 hours a week, so you don't have to do 40 hours a week. So I'm like, I always just try to be honest with people. And I tell them it's not for everyone. If you're not willing to just put in the work, and it's harder than anything I've ever done in my life. It's harder than getting a Division I scholarship. It's harder than I did an Ironman. It's harder than doing Ironman. It's harder than any of it because it draws on every single aspect of your life. It pulls on you emotionally. It pulls on you physically. It pulls on every bit of you. And your family has to be into it too. You can't just,
Yeah.
if your wife is like, you have to be home at 5 o'clock every day, it's not going to work. Your family it's your whole family is in it, not just you. And so, I like to warn people without, being a dream stealer. My first thing is like, this is what you're getting into. But, you know, if you have that mentality and you believe in yourself, then I don't think there's anything that people can't do if they don't really want to. It's just you have to really want to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. And so thank you so much for just sharing, a little bit of your story and wisdom. And I know that whoever does come across this, it was meant for them to hear. And
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity and hope that any something I said helps somebody. We'll see.
yeah, I'm sure. Well, thank you, Matthew, so, so much. And that is going to wrap another business spotlight.